Yo! Welcome back to One More Mana. My name's Derik, and today we're getting not into another deck tech, actually. I almost said another deck tech. We're actually not doing a deck tech today. Don't worry, there are plenty of Zendikar Rising deck techs, one actually later this week, that I'm very excited about. It's a deck I've actually already built and pre-ordered cards for, because, again, I have a problem. So there's another very exciting one coming at the end of the week. But for now, I want to kind of get into some of my favorite cards, some of my favorite mechanics, almost like my own little mini bite-sized set review. Kind of want to talk on the new mechanics in the set. Some of the cards I've seen the most hot takes about, because there have been some flaming hot takes. You got some Magic Stephen A. Smiths running around, throwing around their hot takes for some of these new cards, and I love seeing all of it, so I wanted to kind of chime in on that for a second. And there's plenty of exciting things to get to. So I want to start again with some of the new mechanics. And really, the mechanics in this set are kind of awesome because they're very simple. You know, Landfall and Kicker have been around for a while now. Nothing surprising there. We all know Landfall is super broken, and Kicker is kind of cool. So I'm happy to see those brought back. Party is an amazing mechanic. I really like Party just because it's very flavorful, not super broken, and those are kind of my favorite types of mechanics when you can load it with flavor and not break anything. So that's super cool. Now, the most intriguing one by far to me, though, are the modal cards. Now, there are both the two-sided lands where you get two different colors, and the cards that are a land on one side and you have the spell on the other. Now, I really like these whole spell on one side, land on the other for a variety of reasons. If you've watched this channel for any amount of time, you know one thing I always preach is playing enough lands and always hitting your land drops, and just how important hitting land drops is. You can build the perfect deck with super powerful cards and all this ramp and everything. But if you don't hit a land drop past turn 4, you're going to be way behind everyone, or you're spending all your mana to ramp just to stay at parity. And that is one of the most common mistakes that I see players make, is that despite the fact that they play all this ramp and they have this really well-constructed deck and everything, and they're playing all the signets and everything, they're missing all their land drops. So they're literally spending their mana, essentially wasting it, just to get to parity, when in reality you could have just played more lands and been able to cast other more impactful spells if you really wanted to just stay at parity. And I think these cards do a tremendous job of allowing you to hit those land drops. I don't think, and again, this is going to be one of those things. If y'all know anything about Freezing Cold Takes on Twitter, it's basically a Twitter profile that goes ahead and calls out all really bad sports takes. After the fact, it shows how wrong they were. We've got to start a Magic one. You can just make a list of all the things I'm super wrong about. But for now, since it's still unknown, I'm going to go out and say it anyway. And I don't think you should cut lands for these cards. I think even if you're running 37, 38 lands, add these in addition. Because the way I see it is, even with 37, 38 land decks, you're going to miss land drops. As someone who runs way too many lands, I have a Titania deck with 43 lands and I still miss land drops. These are great to have in there to smooth that out. You know, early game, if you draw like the white one that I'm a big fan of, if you draw an 8 mana board wipe early game, you don't want to cast that early. You can't cast it early, so you can play it out, smooth out your land drops. It's great, but if you draw at turn 10, you don't want to play a land that late. You have a little bit of an overcosted effect, but that dual utility to me is huge. Now, I'm sure in more competitive metas this isn't a good thing, but in the more casual, 75% metas, this is going to be just an awesome amount of flexibility. And it'll make sure you get to play more Magic. Make sure that you hit those land drops. Now, with the modal lands that are the two different colors, that's something I'm a little bit less kind of sure of how I feel about. I love the fact any new dual lands that get printed, I'm excited about. The more options we have for duels, the more affordable duels that are out there, the better. These are really interesting. I think they may catch on more in other formats, because so many other formats, you're not worried about getting to turn 7 or 8. So whatever you choose the color initially, that's all you need. You just need the option up front, whereas in Commander, you want to have that option throughout the game. But again, any dual land, any rare dual lands we get, I am always excited for. That way you can kind of pick and choose your favorites, pick and choose the most budget to put your mana base together. So both of these cards I'm tremendously excited for. I love land bases, and I think these are going to help both build land bases and help you hit your land drops throughout game. Now in this next part, I want to go into some of the cards I've seen the most hot takes on. The cards I've seen people freaking out about, either power level, they're going to break the format, they're going to do this, they need to be banned. What have I seen the most hot takes for? And one of them, without a doubt so far, even though it's been recently previewed, is Lithiform Engine. I've seen a lot of hot takes on this card. Everything from this is so broken with all the combos, to it's not very good, to it's just going to be a very annoying card. I'm kind of in the middle of all that. I'm one of those people that with any type of broken effects that are overcosted, no matter how broken it is, I have a very hard time putting it in decks. One of the best examples of this is Helm of the Host. Helm of the Host is a tremendously broken card, but to get its full effect, you need to pay, I believe it's 9 mana between playing and equipping. And even though it's so broken, I don't really have it in any decks, because to spend 4 mana and then 5 mana to equip and someone blows it up is just a real feel bad. And this can have a similar effect. In reality, I think you'd be better off a lot of the time with a Stronic Resonator, or with something like if you hit the lottery, you can go buy a Rings of Brighthearth and play that if you wanted to. There's a few different cards like that I think are a little like cheaper costed. Now, if this turns into a budget option for that, awesome. That's amazing. I would love that. But it's just to play 4 mana for it, and unless you can immediately get some crazy combo off of it, it just feels bad if someone just goes and blows it up. And this card, at least right now, seems threatening enough that people are going to want to blow it up. I don't know. I feel like it's going to lead to some very convoluted, confusing turns with the combos it's trying to pull off. Not a huge fan of this card. Personally, I'm probably not going to put it in many decks. It's an interesting concept for sure. But again, I want to go for kind of the cheaper costed effects for this type of stuff. And I love it has great flexibility. You can do so many things. But in my mind, I want a more focused, cheaper costed effect as opposed to this very expensive mana-wise investment to get this huge variety when in most decks, you're going to be focused on one specific type of thing. Now, this next one, I saw so many freakouts about in the best ways possible. And this is the one that, for a completely broken card, very few times do I see a reaction that's just so almost universally positive for something being so broken. I can't pronounce it, but it is Morog, Fury of Okaun. I'm gonna call it Tauros. And Tauros is an angry Minotaur that is gonna give you a whole bunch of combat steps. And I love this card. Basically, landfall. If you play a land in your main phase, you go ahead and get an extra combat phase. After that, you untap your creatures and you just get to go crazy, have fun. I love this card so much. When I first read it, I got really scared. I got nervous and I was just like, this is too strong. This is way too powerful. What are they doing? They're breaking everything. Kind of the reaction most Commander players have whenever they see any new card. And then I kind of had time to calm down and I read it. And I realized this is awesome, because one of my biggest complaints about Commander, I think, recently is I feel like the combat step gets ignored. So many decks are focused on just ridiculous value over the course of the game and just big combo plays and just late finishers, and they never actually attack. I love any deck that's incentivizing you to attack, because for this card to be as broken as it can be, you need to have creatures out, you need to have a board presence, and you need to want to attack people. The attack step, attacking in general is also the easiest thing to defend against, I think, in Magic. It's just, you can play a Glacial Chasm, nothing to worry about. You can play a Constant Mist, you can play Arachnogenesis, you can board. There's so many ways to prevent huge combat steps from happening, especially with there's numerous effects in any color. If you're even in white, you have a Teferi's Protection and just regular old board wipes. There's so many ways to prevent it that I realized having a crazy broken effect like this that is so easy to interact with is like the perfect thing for Commander, because it's big, it's splashy, it's explosive, but it's easy to combat. And this is one of the broken cards in this set that I am most excited both to play and play against, because it's going to make some crazy splashy turns. I'm hoping I don't live to regret those words, but as of now, I am very excited about it. Now, I'm going to group the next couple cards into the same category of very exciting things I see Wizards doing in a direction they're moving. There are just some very, very broken cards and effects in Commander, and we're all very aware of it, that some stuff has gotten out of hand. We'll start with the one card that I hear probably the most hot takes about needing to be banned, and that's Cyclonic Rift. A lot of people are very tired of Cyclonic Rift. And they printed a card that actually kind of combats it pretty well, and I'm very excited to see this, and that's Ashaya Soul of the Wild. Now, this is a card where power toughness being land equal to the number of lands, that's not too important. The important part is that all your non-token creatures become forests, meaning they're no longer non-land permanents. So a lot of board wipes, including Cyclonic Rift, no longer apply to your non-token creatures. This is amazing, and I heard a lot of people kind of taking the extreme stance of saying now we need to play mass land destruction because this is going to make board wipes unplayable. There's plenty of board wipes that say destroy all creatures. There's plenty of board wipes that, Toxic Deluge, that just got recently reprinted. A lot of the black board wipes say destroy all creatures, Wrath of God. There's just numerous effects that only care about creatures. So that's not too big of a deal. But what I love so much about it is it's a way to get around cards like Cyc Rift without banning it. And you don't have to be in blue to counter it. I'm a big fan of this. And I love the fact that Wizards, I don't know if it was intentional by accident, I assume it's intentional, obviously they've got a lot of smart people over there, that they're giving us ways around cards like that, just in kind of unthought of ways I would have never thought of, in kind of weird roundabout ways. So I love that. And this next card kind of fits in that same category. And that next card is Confounding Conundrum, and I really am a fan of this. And probably, to me, one of the biggest issues in Commander, and there's, in all, it's a very healthy format. It's doing obviously very well. But one of the biggest issues to me is just the out of control value ramp decks, where the deck doesn't really have much of a direction outside of outvaluing everybody and just getting so many lands into play that they just have more resources. And my biggest issue with it is there's no real way to combat it, because mass land destruction is kind of rightfully so frowned upon. It really just sets the game back, it slows things down. Commander games are long enough. So how do we get around that? And this is another, I think, just genius thing by Wizards in that, and I know a lot of people like to hate on Wizards and everything, but I think this is an amazing job of printing a card again that, I don't know if it was on purpose, but can really help solve some issues with Commander. If we get more effects like this that punish playing too many lands without just punishing the whole table, that is awesome. If you're playing a white deck, if you're playing a red deck, this card really doesn't hurt you too much. You know, you're playing your mana rocks, whatever. But if you're that green player that's explosive vegetation into Kodama's reach, into this, into that, all of a sudden you're bouncing everything you're playing and your mana is being wasted. And there's really not many effects at all in Magic that can punish ramping like that. So I love seeing cards like this. I've preached in the past about Price of Progress and different cards like that that really do try to punish over ramping. And I really hope we see more cards like this. I just strongly believe that being able to keep this over-ramping super value decks, keep them in check in ways other than mass land destruction, is such an important part of keeping the format healthy, and it really does excite me to see Wizards printing cards like this, and I'm just excited to see more like this in the future. Now, the last couple cards I want to talk about are just cards that I'm really excited about. They're kind of pet cards I'm just personally very, very excited about, and I promise that I'm not biased in any way on this first pick. It is coming from a place of complete objectivity, but it is our preview card, and it is Elidar Retreat. If y'all know anything about me, you know I love to force tokens into as many decks as possible, and I love stompy effects and just being able to play lands, poop out tokens, and buff them up, and they just happen to be cats. This is a really, really fun card. I talked about it in our preview video. This is a card I just see as the perfect power level. It can do broken things, but you need to work to get it. It's a really, really fun card, and this is, again, I don't like to play white. I try to put white in as few decks as possible. I love when I see cards that make me want to play white, and this is one of those. I do think this is a card that I'm going to be forcing into decks for years to come and just making little vicious kitty tokens. All right, so the last card I'm going to talk about is the one I am just absolutely the most excited about in this set. It is just amazing. It hits me right in the feels. It takes me back to when I first started playing Magic, and that's Slop Swarm. Now, when I first started playing, my first Commander deck ever was inspired by Scoop Mob. And Scoop Mob is, when I first started playing, I didn't know much about Magic at all. And I thought this was the most broken card ever. I was like, how can you get a 1-mana 5/5? And I'm always going to have enough lands. Of course I'm going to have enough lands. A 1-mana 5/5, if it makes it one round to the table, this is unfair. I thought it was the greatest thing ever. And it made me want to build a Commander deck when I first learned what Commander was. And I had a 5-color Chromat Insect deck that I really hope I can find a deck list for it. I don't even call it a Commander deck. It was just a jumbled mess of cards. But those insects still take me back. Anytime I still have in my binder a lot of the cards that were in that deck. And Scoop Mob really was my favorite, and to see its evolved 2020 version just makes me so happy. And the fact that this is slotting straight into my current all-time favorite deck in Titania makes me even happier. This card is awesome. You put this into Titania with all the fetch lands and anything playing Escape Shift, all of a sudden you have exponential insects, because eventually Slop Swarm is just making copies of itself and you get more and more. I'm going to end up hurting my brain trying to do the math, trying to figure out how many I have in games, but I love this. It fits the over-the-top splashy style of the deck. This is just a card I absolutely love. You just flood the board with 1/1s. It's very easy to deal with. Any board wipe's going to basically get rid of all your progress. But it's going to be very, very, very hard for any card in this set to beat Slop Swarm on my list of favorite cards. This card just seems so much fun. So that is going to wrap up today's video. I really hope y'all enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments if you like this kind of like informal kind of just discussion type of deal about random cards and new sets and all this type of stuff. Don't worry, all this deck text, you're not going to be missing out on any deck text from Zendikar Rising. This would just be in addition to deck text. But if you are interested, definitely let me know. Again, I have way too many Magic takes, and my cat is very tired of hearing me talk about them. So if y'all want to hear about it instead, I would be more than happy to share all my thoughts. Now, obviously, there's some amazing cards in Zendikar Rising, and I'm sure you want to pick up some of them. So if you do, head on over to TCG Player. If you use our affiliate link down in the description below, anything you get through that link will help support the channel. We really, really appreciate all the help. As always, a huge, huge shout out as well to all the patrons. We love and appreciate y'all so much, and there's so much to come. Like I said, plenty of deck techs. This set has a lot of really exciting stuff, but already a deck tech is set for Zendikar Rising. I'm sure there's going to be some for those Commander decks, and then Commander Legends is here, so there's just non-stop deck techs. But until then, I will see y'all next time.